A major rule change made by Legend Story Studios to the ProQuest competition has led to massive drama across the board of the competitive Flesh and Blood community. Everyone's minds are blowing, it's going crazy. Also, a new SilverAge format announcement happened at the keynote in ProTour Singapore. We're also going to get into some broader market details, so if all of that interests you, stick around and hear so much more from
Andres.
And I'm SideQuest Jerry. Welcome to the QuestLog. All right, so some ProQuest drama has broken out, and I'm gonna dive a little bit into the story before we actually talk about our thoughts and opinions on it, because believe me, both Andres and I have some differing views on this, and things might get a little bit spicy here. So first, what I wanna mention is that LSS just kind of really slyly came out of nowhere. Nobody really expecting anything, and just on the website, just kind of subtly noted that, hey, in this upcoming ProQuest season, if you finish first place and you record that result in Swiss, receiving the invite and the gold foil or whatever rewards you decide for, you can no longer compete in any more ProQuests. This is a significant little piece of news because a lot of the people out there who play Flesh and Blood competitively, and in some cases as a source of income, are getting really angry. I kind of get why, but they're getting a little upset because not just are they losing a little bit of extra cash on the side, but they don't get to compete in some of these special events. And so they've been going back and forth with some of the LSS employees. And if you go and look at some of these replies on X, the LSS employees are just saying, hey, get over it.
It's true. I understand from their perspective how it can suck to just be told, because you win, you don't get to play any longer. Like you said, we have some differing opinions on the matter. At first glance, I think it's a good thing. If you win your first ProQuest, or not your first ProQuest, but if you win your ProQuest, you've done what you needed to do for that season, right? You now get to open up the aperture for other people to go in and win those ProQuests instead of you. I see nothing wrong with the change.
Go ham, man. Continue on. You're saying good things. Let's see if we continue agreeing or not, right?
Yeah, well, one of the things that has struck me viewing all of the replies and looking at everything, all of the discourse that's happened around this decision, is that it's the same group of people who have complained about other LSS decisions around organized play in the past. Getting rid of the ELO system, making armories less competitive, focusing more on the fun of the armory, with the inclusion of gem packs and some other things. And now with this pretty big decision that if you win a ProQuest, you can no longer compete in any of the other ProQuests for the season, I think it falls right in line with their intent, which is to widen the aperture of the folks who can go to these larger events. I see no problem, frankly, in not allowing the same group of the most highly competitive people go from ProQuest to ProQuest, making decisions about who's going to top, who's going to concede, and collecting the gold foils, collecting the living legend points, and all these other things. And frankly, at the expense of just, hey, more people get that opportunity. I say that being someone who doesn't travel to all these big events, but I do respectably well locally or whatever. I play fine. I play Levi and everything.
No.
Supposedly. But anything, I think, that incentivizes more people to go to these ProQuests where they're not going to be, not sharked, I don't want to say sharked, but not going to be kind of surrounded in a pool by the same folks who went to the last ProQuest you went to, and gives you an opportunity to win.
I would just call that a dedicated player base, right? Like, the dedicated player base are just people who want to play the game and show up and have a good time, right?
But the fact of the matter is that every decision LSS has made has been focused on removing the tendency toward monopoly, frankly, in the overall organized play system, and allowing the distribution of those resources a little bit more equitably. I don't see why the same group of folks should be able to go collect all the promos, gold foils, and
they're good at the game.
PTIs,
but they're good at the
expense of the larger community. And frankly, the downside effect of this that I'm sure that they're seeing is that
potentially
you're going to get larger PT showings.
Yeah.
You're going to get a wider champion pool participating in these larger events because more, different groups of people, different people winning these things are going to bring different heroes. And those same people who already won their ticket to that event are still going to go to that event. So you're still competing against the cream of the crop. They still got what they wanted. They're just not getting more of what they want at the expense of the wider community that as we've discussed, and we discussed last week, has grown so immensely over the past couple of years. I see nothing wrong with that.
And I think you make a lot of great points here. There is a lot of amazing factors, and that I think that LSS has a hand in this. They could just take a step back and say we don't see any problems and move forward. With that being said, I do think that as many good decisions as LSS does make, I think that they really made a severe misstep on this one. See, my biggest issue is that they made such a substantial change with zero dev talk to accompany it. They just kind of threw it in there into the mix to let just these dedicated professional players, and even dedicated players like myself, where I haven't topped like a calling yet, who will go and travel to multiple ProQuest events. Like, I just see this and think, well, can you tell me more, please? So I think that's a serious misstep on their part, because they've already cultivated a relationship with the player base that says, we are going to tell you all about these different changes, right? Like, anytime they make any massive change, they always accompany it with an explanation. And here, they made such a massive change so nonchalantly that I felt that was a little bit uncharacteristic of them, don't you think? And that just kind of instills some nervous reception.
I don't disagree. I think there should have been more anticipated communication around something that is obviously so important to so many people, but I also think decisions like this and their choice on how they choose to communicate, or how they choose that they will communicate, is kind of a natural evolution of the growth of the company. No longer, and no, you know, there's this kind of central group of like fab, like royalty. I don't want to mischaracterize. They're not bad people or anything like that. But this central group of, hey, these are like
they're the lords of Cinder, is what they are.
They're
the lords
of Cinder,
namesake,
right? And everything. And kudos to them. They've dedicated so much of their time, so much of their lives, so much of their passion to this game, and you know they deserve recognition for that. But the fact of the matter is, the growth of the company, the growth of the game, can't be beholden to their sentiments. And I got the feeling from what I saw, in the responses, that, hey, this is frankly a small change in, and Trevor Baker said this himself on a conversation with Fino on X, that, hey, this is just a small detail in a far larger I don't know if I want to use the word overhaul, but a far larger list of changes that are going into 2026.
And that's super exciting, but that's kind of like I would have loved the conversation, at least. Like, lay down the foundation of trust, and I'm sure they already have our trust. Like, all of us already really have trust in LSS. But the reason why we trust them is because they communicate. And a massive change like this kind of obfuscates that communication. However, the next thing I kind of see as problematic with this is that it's kind of weird. It's like a really weird feeling as a flesh and blood competitive player to be told, hey, if you're good at the game, you can't play more, right? Like, that's just a weird feeling.
I agree. I agree that it never feels good to be told you can't play more. But I think when you focus around the intent of these events and what they are meant to be a channel to, especially aspirationally, and I'll tell you firsthand, I've come, you know, I compete at like 1, maybe 2 ProQuests per season, right? The last one, I did really well. I top 4. I was like 2 health points, 2 whatever. I was like 1 silly mistake away where I was genuinely, hey, I could have won. And I'll tell you, if I had won, I would have definitely booked the trip to go to Pro Tour. And I feel like there are a lot of people like that with me. I don't have the time to commit my life and everything to this, and I probably would have done poorly at the Pro Tour. But just having that experience and having access to that experience would have felt great. So as a highway to those experiences, ProQuest is intended to serve a purpose. The purpose shouldn't be to continue to cultivate this same small kind of centralized group of folks at the expense of the larger community.
But it does get a little weird, right? Like, in the sense that, hey, not only do I not get to compete, but I also don't get to win these promos. Because I do see where you're coming from, where it's just like, hey, guys, what are you doing? Like, we need to spread the love a little bit. Not only let more people get PTIs, but more people get promos. And in the same vein, it's like, well, instead of doing this rule change, why not just expand Pro Tour to the top 4? And then if top 4 doesn't, let's say all top 4 already had an invite, then just give it to the next in top 8. And so it's like, if you're already trying to just expand the player base, allowing more people to enter Pro Tour just as a competitor, why not just expand it to the top 4 and then let it kind of go down to the top 8 as top 4 already has it? Why not let these guys compete and win promos? Because let's be real, it's kind of weird playing with only 2 Tekla cores that are cold foil, right? It's kind of weird, and it's kind of a bit of a trophy to say, hey, I won this this saber, this gold foil saber that I used my Kasai. I won that, right?
Absolutely, but I think you hit on the crux of the issue, and I think I look at that much less charitably than you might. I don't get a nice warm and fuzzy when I see on X some dude or whatever who went to like the 7 ProQuests he might have had access to and topped all of them, and seeing all of his his
It
game
would be
trophies.
weird to see Brody in our locals, right?
It would be weird, but apparently that's not
Brody,
something...
you should come.
Yeah,
We'd love to have you.
Something that's
I
outside
need a
of the realm of
rematch. You
possibility.
crushed me on Gravy Bones in the Nationals. I need to get that rematch back.
But it's not just
I'll
about
play Ira this
spreading the
time.
love about going to the PT. It's about spreading the love of the experience and all the goodies that come with it. Everyone should have an opportunity for the shinies, and yeah, should the pro is there a better approach? Sure, but when the conversation is around, hey, why not just like continue to send down the PTI? They're not saying that when it comes to the gold foils. They've already won their gold foil. They're not going to send that one down, or the promos, or the whatever. No, that's just more cash in their pocket for the testing team. And again, one of the bigger problems I have is with any LSS approach to maintaining the competitive integrity. And I think this is an element of it, because when you have, again, the same group of people essentially deciding what top 4 is going to look like based on, conceding to their buddy or doing whatever. I've been asked to do that before, and I said no. In a game that I was sure I knew I was going to lose because the matchup was that dreadful, right?
Yes.
But that's like the game. And sure, should we be policing everyone's intent? Not necessarily, but can we build more effective systems so everyone gets a chance at the goodies? I think we should.
And that's where we get to a really interesting point, where this kind of incentivizes players, competitors, people at the top level, that, let's say I wanted to go compete at Chaos's ProQuest, right? If I'm at Guildhall playing at their ProQuest and Chaos's ProQuest is the next day, and I really want to go to both because it's a fun community experience to play alongside my fellow Flesh and Blood players, my fellow locals. I love you.
Yeah.
I love playing with you. It's why I always lose, so I can continue playing with you. I'm just kidding.
You beat me last time.
I'm
You're
really
okay.
kidding. but real talk here. It's like you kind of getting locked out of that experience. There's 2 things that happens. First is that the players who want to continue playing might just arrange it in such a way that they get what they want out of that ProQuest, where you play to lose, right?
Yeah.
And then whoever wins gets to concede, and then the other person doesn't go to any more ProQuest, and you get the cold foil, and it's kind of already split that way. So it does feel like a heavy-handedness on this market that's just going to force people into a position where they're just going to say, well, I'm going to figure it out anyway. And that might just be why LSS is like, well, you guys go figure it out on your own. We're going to make our official policy decision this. However, I think the other thing that is really harmful to the local game store, and again, LSS, full credit to you guys. You have a tough job. I give you credit, please. I do think that this does hurt the local game store. When somebody is anticipating that they're not going to win a ProQuest, and they go ahead and they sign up for some of these ProQuests that all have limited space,
Right.
and then they show up to that first ProQuest and win, now they can't compete in the next ProQuest the next day, which means that they have to call on the LGS and cancel last minute, and the LGS just kind of puts their hands up and says, oh, how are we going to fill this spot? Then suddenly they might end up with 5 empty spots because of 5 different players winning. It's not that they can't show up and compete. It's that they're not allowed to. They want to, but they just can't because they won. It kind of punishes winners.
I think that's a good point. In general, right, I agree that you can't stop people from finding ways to develop an advantage for themselves. That's what we do. I don't think there's necessarily anything wrong with that, but that's why systems are so important, and that's why I agree with this LSS ruling, especially when it comes to local game stores or whatever. I've run the ProQuests at Guildhall and all this other stuff. People will just sign up for all of them to ensure that they can take up a slot whether or not they intend to be there. So I think that is a lot more at the community level. Like LSS shouldn't even try to be held responsible for that. But I will say that LSS doesn't owe any of us. Doesn't owe any of us a bunch of guaranteed play opportunities at this level. I've seen a lot of the arguments, hey, I just want to play more Fab. We conveniently leave out the fact that we have expensive promos and gold foils and stuff, and like, yeah, take my PTI, says the guy who has 5 banked, right? Which is really easy to say, which is, again, why I don't have sympathy for that. But if you really want to just play more Flesh and Blood, go to your local armories. Go to more armories. If that is what you want to do. ProQuest season has a specific pipeline to a specific thing. RTN is a specific pipeline to a specific thing. Instead of, maybe just testing with your team all the time, go, and nothing against teams. I love that whole thing. Again, I love all of these things. What I am saying is that just because something is intended to help more people and it diminishes your piece of the pie doesn't mean you are personally being targeted. And if you feel personally targeted by a ruling like this that helps structure a system meant to do specific things, maybe you were doing something that system didn't intend.
No, it is targeting. It is straight up targeting. If you feel targeted, you're targeted. You know why? Because they're changing the culture of the game. And I think that's why there's so many people that are resistant. The culture of the game is shifting. It is saying, you know what? We love where it's been, but we want to take it to a new spot.
Right.
And you're just going to have to trust us on this. Even LSS, there was a dev talk, I don't remember when, I don't remember the exact topic, but what they had effectively said was that we have discussed this in depth. We've hit every point. You can come here and watch our conversations on this. You're just going to have to trust us that we already discussed everything, and we decided that this is, it was the rule sharking conversation.
Yes.
There it is.
Yeah.
And what they said is that we've already talked through all of these, and we just decided that this is the culture we want to promote. And what's happening here is that they're just deciding that this culture of Flesh and Blood has to just go away.
Right.
It just has to dissipate. And they're going to move forward with a different set of culture of Flesh and Blood, where they're going to, like you said, maybe spread the love a little bit more. And I think that's one reason why so many of us are resistant, because there isn't a conversation. But you know what? They don't have to have a conversation. I don't think LSS has to come out and say anything. But they brought it on themselves that they got all the uproar because they didn't.
Yeah.
If you turn, that's just the way that it goes.
I think you make a great point. I love the point you made about the culture. It is a shifting culture. I understand that a lot of these folks are upset because they were promised that, if they were going to be at the top of the mountain, they could always be at the top of that mountain because Flesh and Blood was about the highest level of competitive play.
Yes.
But that has shown, it has borne out that only works for a community of a particular size for a certain amount of time. And if LSS wants Flesh and Blood to grow in the way that it needs to compete with the big dogs, these are the kinds of decisions it has to make. And this harkens back to what I said earlier. This falls perfectly in line with other decisions that they've made over time. And frankly, folks would be not just up in arms and discussing it on X, like minds would be blown if all of those decisions had been made at once. So they are giving us the benefit of rolling these things out over time as these things get means tested.
They're certainly capitalizing on their trust in the community. Yeah. The community has.
But they deserve
certainly
it, frankly. They deserve it.
Yes, they do. They've really taken this game in a new direction. They've really shifted a lot of things. They're changing the culture, which I'm going to say is going to bring us to the next segment we have for you right now. And I was so amped and excited for this thing. It's the announcement of Project Blue's transformation into the SilverAge, officially announced at ProTour Singapore. Andres, what do you think this is? I think it's nuts. I think it's fun. There's so much potential. They left us with nothing, zero communication. Do you think that this first story is actually playing into the second SilverAge announcement?
I'm really excited about SilverAge. I think it's going to do a heck of a lot of good for the community as a whole. It's part of the culture shift. It's part of the paradigm of what is acceptable gameplay and what everyone wants to do. As you know, as we talked in the previous podcast, I was a huge proponent for Clash. I continue to be a proponent for Clash. I think it's a lot of fun. Any format that lets you do semi-powerful things a lot and still have fun, get the full Flesh and Blood experience, is great. And I am excited that they're finally cultivating something new that allows us to use the whole pool of young heroes, this whole like lost segment of Flesh and Blood. Frankly, because of the shortcomings of Blitz, the shortcomings of Commoner, and it has borne out that, you know, it requires a lot more curation. It requires a lot more, you know, dedicated focus to make something like this work. When I looked at the ban list for the Project Blue stuff and what was on there, everything that is egregiously overvalued basically, you know, doesn't necessarily get to see play in the format. I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing.
Yeah.
And I think they're going to, frankly, an offshoot of this is like they're going to be able to develop product lines. There's going to be cards that are going to be suddenly more valuable.
Blitz decks are going to get a lot better.
Blitz decks, Blitz decks are going to get a lot better.
Much better.
And people are going to want to play a format that is actually curated, that a format is actually, you know, there's been gardening happening, right? They've done some caretaking on what is allowable and what isn't, and frankly, that's what befell Blitz, a 20 health format with, you know, cards intended for a 40 health hero, that just left it in a place where not only was it not much cheaper than playing regular classic constructed, games ended by turn 2. We could say something similar about Living Legend, but well, you know. But anyway, long story short, I think it's really cool. I think the thematic is really cool, and I'm excited to run it locally.
I'm going to go on a little bit of a rant here.
Go for it.
Because I'm very excited for this. Okay, so for those of you out there who are like, SilverAge rares only, who wants to play that? I don't know how many of you are actually out there that are critiquing this thing, but first off, let me say, it's because your hero has not LL'd yet. And you know, deep down in my soul, there's this empty husk of a shell that says, I want to play Dromai again. I want to pick up this chick and pitch a red into a Kyloria and attack and draw a card. Please steal a gold from Gravy. For heaven's sake, give me something, right? And the problem I have is that the solution has always been, well, why don't you just play Living Legend? And Living Legend, we love you, you're great, I think you're awesome, you're still in the experimental phase, and LSS feels like you're getting better to lead you out forward, but I just don't feel like I can play Dromai in that format and actually make her work, right? There are certain heroes in that format that have needed substantial nerfs, but I feel like with the release of SilverAge, there's a little bit of hope there, where I get to experiment with a brand new pool of heroes, and heroes that are long gone, who I adore. Lexi, love you. My wife's gonna come in and play the heck out of you in that format. I think that there is so much here in this SilverAge format to be excited for, especially if they come out with an extensive ban list that has good explanations and people can't just outvalue all the time. And I think as long as this is a super curated experience, it becomes the opposite of Classic Constructed. It becomes the opposite of Living Legend, which has been a bit of a Wild West. To the point where LSS is just like, hey guys, it's so wild that we have to ban cards like Berserk. We see this crazy thing happen with Aether Vein, and we like, oh, drawing 8 cards off of that is kind of bad. We should get rid of it. Or even like there's just so many cards that have just been problematic, and they've allowed a Wild West. There's fun in that. There's exploration in that. There's discovery in that. What I would like out of SilverAge is like we were saying, a curated experience where you can show up and know that these are well-tested, well-played heroes. All of these cards are banned for a reason, and it could be a wonderful jumping-off point for brand new players who are either experiencing the Crack Shuffle play with the Guardian Mastery pack, or the Smash Palace product into Super Slam. It'll be a different product when the game comes out. But that's kind of the direction they're taking this stuff. New players need an avenue to jump onto, and I think that SilverAge is exactly that. It's why I picked up the game 5 years ago, because I knew that LSS was going to make awesome decisions like this. And rant.
No, I mean, great rant, absolutely. I agree, frankly, with everything you said in terms of why you're excited about the format. And I'm going to praise it by juxtaposing my confusion about what Living Legend is supposed to be. I think, frankly, they might have lost the plot a little bit, with what Living Legend is intended to be, because SilverAge can be a rubric for the kind of curation that a format on the other extreme would need to have. Living Legend was supposed to be the Wild West. Now it's like not, because obviously things don't seem to work and not everything is viable. And I don't think Living Legend is going to be what it needs to be for at least another 5 years.
Yeah.
But SilverAge has the opportunity to do that right now,
Yes.
today, with the
Yes.
existing card pool in a way that makes every hero accessible like they've never been. And I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I think it's going to bring a lot of people in at a price point that is nearly negligible. We're going to have to keep an eye on that, I think, because I mentioned like card prices might spike for certain things and in that format, depending on what the adoption rate looks like. But I don't think it's anything but a great thing, and I'm looking forward to running, you know, SilverAge games and SilverAge armories and bigger events. You know, and frankly, I look forward to maybe inclusion in bigger events. Like everyone had a problem with the First Worlds and the inclusion of Blitz. SilverAge could be a phenomenal constructive inclusion.
Absolutely.
That actually solves the problem of Blitz.
Worlds, if Worlds is, and suppose is a great, Worlds 2026 is SilverAge, Living Legend, Classic Constructed, Top 8, Classic Constructed.
That would be so sick.
It would be an amazing, it'd be amazing.
It would be mega sick.
Like, they've already, and they're kind of giving us hints to this, that they've abandoned the limited format. And it's possible that Nationals is, not abandoned, sorry, let me rephrase this. They're abandoning the limited format at the World stage, whereas at the National stage and calling level, limited will maintain a presence, but only for specifically curated limited experiences for that, because we didn't see very much of the Hunted. We didn't see I'm assuming we're not going to see very much of Super Slam as far as limited is concerned. But what limited I feel like has been an ability to have competitive events without Living Legend points, so that they can stop heroes from LLing. But now we bottlenecked that. We have the 0.5 multiplier. We have potentially a new SilverAge. We have Living Legend. They've phased out Blitz. So now I feel like we're going to start seeing the sealed draft experience dwindle a little bit. And that might be why they actually melded the ELOs, because they were planning on doing this anyway. So I don't know. I think that we see that the limited will become only pushed for one set each year. And maybe they start transforming the way they think about some of these other sets. Maybe they're more balanced around crack shuffle play, or I don't know. I'm not sure. That's just speculation now.
I can see why you would think that, and I don't think that's necessarily the wrong way to go. I'm interested in how their vision for set development changes. I always thought getting rid of supplemental sets was a mistake. I loved supplemental sets. Everfest was the best supplemental set ever produced, and it continues to be borne out today.
Dynasty is also very good.
Dynasties also has proven to be very good now, exactly. I don't know
Season
how
Savior, $125 now.
right.
Marvel was $25
You're
2
right.
years ago.
I don't know how I would feel with a de-emphasis on limited play in bigger events. I'm not saying I'm a huge fan of limited. I like it enough. I bought into the concept that, hey, if you're going to be great at this game, you have to be great at the game as a whole, to include the limited play, especially since they were investing so much development, time, and effort into making, especially the more recent sets, frankly, the greatest limited experience I've ever had. And Flesh and Blood is the only card game I've ever really played. It's the only limited set I've really played, but I can absolutely tell the difference between what it felt like drafting Uprising and what it felt like drafting and playing Sealed Rosetta, which was incredible. I loved Sealed Rosetta, Limited Rosetta, and I really have enjoyed Limited High Seas too, for similar reasons. A bunch of expression, you do a bunch of cool things, everything feels really synergistic. They've taken tremendous strides.
Yes.
And it would sadden me to see that segregated from competitive constructed play. But I will say, and just to wrap up that one note, is that at the highest level, Pro Tour, Nationals, World Championship, Limited has created kind of a funnel where the best limited players, not necessarily the best constructed players, your limited run determines whether you get to day 2 and whether you make it to top 8, which I think has had like a weirding effect on what heroes actually get to the top tables.
Yes, and I think that the double down on this idea is that we look at what heroes are represented. Slippy was represented at 80, nearly 80, a lot. And I don't think that's because people thought that he was the best choice going in. I thought people thought it was because he was the easiest choice going in. And and the reason for that is so that they can spend more time practicing limited environment, limited high seas.
Right.
Does that make sense?
I
So
think it does.
like if you're able to, if there's only 40 Gravy players because he's a super complicated deck, so unless you've been practicing him 24/7, you're not going to pick up Gravy. You're going to pick up Slippy. Slippy's just like, hey, I'm just going to throw a Bonds of Agony at you with Go Again. What you doing now? I have 4 cards behind it. And then the opponent is just like, I don't know what to do. And I think that element of the game limited has been great, but I think that there are some elements of it such as not being able to practice it as effectively, especially because High Seas product was so limited and so hard to get your hands on that you have to resort to other methods of practice. It's really challenging for a company that's trying to make this a grassroots experience, get people in from the grassroots into this gameplay. So I do think you do make a good point that at the highest levels, like Worlds, ProQuest, maybe they phase that out a little bit and focus more on Living Legend and Blitz, which is a much easier thing to curate. Not because Limited is a bad experience, no.
No, it's been great.
But because learning the sets takes far more time than some people have on their hands.
Yeah, I don't disagree. It's funny because Limited to me has been sold in two separate ways, two separate arguments, which has been, Limited is a great way to just jump in and learn to play. And also, Limited is very complicated.
It teaches you the fundamentals.
And it does,
yeah.
But Limited is also super complicated and you have to invest all that time. Perhaps at the highest level, right? I think there's been a dilution of emphasis on Limited. There are second order impacts, like you mentioned, right? Availability of product really made it hard to draft the Hunted. I remember when our friend Andrew was planning to go to whichever it was, one of the things, and it was really hard to get like Hunted drafts because
we got Japanese product.
Yeah, we just didn't have the product.
Yeah.
And if they are not prepared to effectively address those second order impacts,
which they attempted to do.
Which they did, right? But they also, what decision did they make? They said, hey, you can no longer draft online with that one thing. They said there was some program that they shut down.
I drafted on that program all day. I don't know.
Anyway.
It might have been some other thing or whatever, and maybe it got blown back. I hear where you're coming from, but I was able to draft online.
If anyone remembers in the comments, I think you'll know what I'm talking about. But anyway, long story short, I think you're right. Learning to draft at that high level has created a siphoning effect at those events where I do think the emphasis should be on constructed play. So what will be interesting to see is that if their philosophy continues to be draft, not draft first, but draft is a critical element of our development cycle and what our game is about, then are they going to do like separate draft, like separate whole draft competitive cycle stuff? And maybe people can just focus on that. I will continue. If it's a good draft set, I'll play it and I'll enjoy it. I'm not going to compete at a high level. But I do hope that an outcome is a return to more and better supplemental sets, even if they don't take the form of Everfist.
It could
and
happen.
They've been doing with Mastery Pack. I think they've been doing interesting things.
Yes.
And I hope they continue to explore that.
Agreed. And if anyone can do it, I think it's LSS. I think they've bought enough goodwill from us over the past couple of years to say, hey, we moved over from less draft to more draft, and we gave you a lot of really cool draft experiences. If they said, hey, maybe we do pull back on some of these draft experiences and give you other sets that are more supplemental, that could be a good bone. And it doesn't have to be every time. They don't have to operate in cyclical environments. They don't have to do the same thing all the time. They can make some changes and adjustments, and I'm excited to see what they do with that. One thing I really like about SilverAge, and I'm really excited for with SilverAge, is that I think that in these limited experiences, there are all these amazing, awesome, common, rare cards that are so cool. They're so amazing, and I love playing with them. But that's the extent that they go in my deck, right? They're really fun to play with in limited, but I don't want to see them anywhere else.
A lot of them look really pretty too. We get all these promos that we never see again. We get these cards that we never really use in any constructed deck ever again, with some great art and with some other things. Maybe they start addressing that with actual SilverAge product stuff that would be cool. Really cool. But I don't disagree with you. I think we've all accumulated a bunch of limited tokens and stuff from these events that just kind of sits there and collects dust.
So this is not financial advice. Please do not sue me if it goes wrong. However, I do have a couple of cards right here, and I don't really want to call this a market minute, but it's a bit of a, a shoehorn market minute, where I was going to say I think that these two cards here are worth highlighting at the very least, and when SilverAge comes out, depending on what happens, I think that they will gain value. And the cards I have in mind today is from part of the Misfail, believe it or not. And these are the Emissary cycle cards, specifically Emissary of Moon and Emissary of Wind. I think that both of these cards are going to see play in SilverAge. And I say that because I personally use some of these in Clash when we play, right? Like
yeah, I've seen it. Can
They feel good.
Yeah.
They feel good. They feel good. And I'm not necessarily saying you want to run both or all, but the way I see it is that both the Emissary of the Moon and Emissary of the Wind are good replacements for Enlightened Strike.
Right.
So in any deck that you would think that you'd run Enlightened Strike for Go Again or Enlightened Strike to fix a bad hand, it's very usable. I was playing lots of Briar with Emissary of the Moon, and what was really fun was having the easy access to Go Again with the Embodiment of Lightning, playing Emissary of Moon, and then it just like, you send the card that you can't use for a card that you can use, and suddenly your bum turn becomes a gas turn, right? Like, happens more often than you would think. And it's the same thing with Emissary of Wind. It's really good for clearing allies. It does everything that E-Strike wants you to do, but a little bit worse, because, instead of a 0 for 5, it's a 0 for 4. And instead of blocking 3, it blocks 2. But these cards are probably about $1 each on TCG Player. And if you want to have some really sick promos to play with SilverAge, maybe you consider running these, because I see a world where Icelander might want to just go Emissary of Wind to Go Again, or Emissary of Moon, draw a card, right, and follow it up with some kind of other play.
Absolutely.
I don't
yeah,
know.
I think in a format where how much value you can cheat is absolutely constrained, any card that lets you cheat even a little bit of value is going to be at a premium. And again, the promos themselves are beautiful. We've all have them collecting dust in our collections, and I'm excited to pop them out and put them into all kinds of decks. And if they're that cheap right now, again, not financial advice, but if picking up a playset or two is only going to cost me a few bucks, there's no reason not to.
But that's
especially if they're going to go up in price.
And only the promos too. Those are just the promos. They're like $1 each, right? The rares, they're pennies. They're pennies. You can get your hands on them. And that comes to like this broader idea of like blinging out your deck. I think that there are going to be a lot of players who have always wanted to play with a blinged out deck, but they couldn't in Classic Constructed or Living Legend. Fair enough. Because some of those blinged out decks just cost way too much. You could probably spare $100 on cold foil equipment and promo cards, right? And be able to get the experience of a full blinged deck at a competitive event.
Right, and doing that right now before it actually starts happening, it's not going to cost you that $100. It's going to cost you maybe a couple dozens of dollars or whatever, if that. Like we were talking with Clash and everything, building a good Clash deck, even blinging out my full, like Leviathan Clash deck, I have it full blinged out or whatever, that was still, a pittance compared to what my Gravy Bones deck over here actually cost with riches and everything. I think the only non-bling card I have in there is I don't have Eye of Ophidia because I just refuse.
That's not bling. That's a requirement.
Yeah, well, it's bling for me. There's another.
Every time I play a pirate card and I'd go to pitch 2 gold, I'm like, why isn't this an Eye of Ophidia?
I'm missing out, but for now I'm okay missing that out. Now, in SilverAge, with cards like that, especially when they're $1 right now, you can put all those promos to use, or maybe flip them into something valuable when the format finally officially releases.
Yeah, and so that brings us to kind of like the broader market stuff in Flesh and Blood. I think we've seen some we talked about this last week, but I feel like there's always more to talk about with Flesh and Blood market prices, because let's be real, if you don't have the card, you can't play the game. And one of the biggest barriers to entry for a lot of these people is the cost of cards. So I do think that SilverAge is going to break those barriers significantly, and you're going to see maybe some old cards in your collection go up if it's really popular. Right? However, I do think that we talked about it last time as a barrier to entry. I kind of want to talk about it a little bit differently today, where it's just like, hey, there are these cards like Codex of Frailty that got reprinted, and then they dropped from $100 all the way down to $30. Awesome. we have a full set of expansion slots coming out in Super Slam.
I was waiting for us to talk about
In
this.
Super Slam. What do you think they're going to reprint now?
I hope they reprint a bunch of cool stuff. A small caveat, not a caveat, but a small kind of addendum. I think this falls perfectly in line with what we were talking about earlier, the new way they're going to add supplemental product. I'm really excited about Super Slam, not just because I'm a Brute player, because, you know, I play Shadow Brute mostly, but the other Brutes are fun, but because I have hope that they will print something nice, new, and Shadow Brute shiny for me in one of those 31 expansion slots, right? I still don't want Levi to be busted ever. I want to play her for as long as they'll let me.
Yes.
But, you know, I like seeing new shiny stuff every once in a while, and I usually have to wait a couple years for that to happen.
I'll only let you get that new shiny stuff if and only if they reprint Husk.
Oh, they
Reprint
might.
Husk. Come on, give us Husk in that
Don't
slot.
reprint Husk.
Come on.
Don't reprint Husk.
Reprint Husk. It doesn't have to, not rainbow foil, not cold foil. Reprint it, make it like, you know, Japanese or Spanish or something, so that when people open it, they're like, oh, this is, I'll sell it to you for half off, right? That's just a dig on you, foreign market. Sorry, guys.
An alternate art Husk would be sick.
Oh,
That
yes.
would be
Well,
actually sick.
There have been some rumors we're getting an alternate art flick knives. Did you see that?
I did not.
There is this interesting photo that came up, and I'll have to show you a bit later after the podcast. There is some art that came out that looks a lot like a flick knives art. We might be getting flick knives reprinted.
I mean, I think that's probably due with everyone playing flick
Yes.
knives, so many heroes playing flick knives, the assassin.
I mean, they just released the Hunted.
I am personally ready for like the assassin ninja era of this game to be like done for a while. Least favorite classes, personally. You know, cool to everyone who plays them. But I mean, yeah, just the premium on those decks, the premium on Slippy. I mean, assassins, something has to be done with assassins, I think. But they've been working on it, right? The code.
Yeah.
You talked about the codex. Any reprints that help address that, especially as the game grows, I think is a good thing.
Yep.
Personally, I'm really hoping for reprints of like the classic staples. I want there to be a new E-Strike. Maybe not Command and Conquer. It's become less and less of a serious requirement.
I mean, it's
like,
still 120
still
bucks.
100 bucks.
The hunted Command and Conquer is still way up there in price.
That's because of how they chose to reprint it, though. They didn't have to choose to make it a legendary. It could have just
didn't.
been a regular.
No,
Command
it went
and
down.
Conquer.
It went down in price to like 80 bucks, and then it went back up to like 120 because people loved that art. They loved the full art. They loved they reprinted it with the different art, and people liked that art more. You could still buy the classic Arcane Rising art for maybe 80, 90 bucks, but that new art itself is more expensive. It's pretty funny.
I'm starting to come around to the thought, okay, maybe stop reprinting generic staples. Like maybe the answer isn't to just reprint, you know, out the wazoo every generic staple in the world. You know, they've done a lot better with class-specific versions of a staple. Like help shape out the character of the class so we don't have to rely on these generic staples. I think they need to kind of reprint some of those class-specific staples.
Yes.
For example,
Spinal Crush could see it.
Spinal Crush could see it. There's a lot of really important class-specific cards that came out in Arcane Rising, that came out in Uprising, and other stuff that that could use the love. And I hope that
Swing
they
Big got
really
one.
use this. Say again?
Swing Big got one.
I know. I'm so excited.
Yeah,
the
Swing
the
Big
art
got a
looks
reprint.
so
Right.
cool. Swing Big is a card.
I think it's a skirmish promo.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I'm
Incentive to play
definitely
skirmishes.
knows, you know, I'm gonna get my full play
that's
set.
okay,
You know, competitively or otherwise.
For sure. What else do you think we could see reprinted that needs it? I'm on the board, like, because the popular decision is just Warmongers, reprint that thing into the ground. That thing is way too much money for what it gets you, right? Reprint it.
Warmongers, I think they should reprint Warmongers Diplomacy. I think they should, oh man, what should they, I mean, the egregious offenders, I feel like we're talking, maybe another Fiendel Spring Tunic, I don't know.
That is an interesting one because Fiendel Spring Tunic is one of those cards they've been shifting away from.
Right.
But every time they reprint it, it just goes up in value. Evo was 50 bucks at one point. Easiest buy of anyone's life was to pick those up at 50 bucks because now they're right back at $150 per. Like it's just the easiest buy of anyone's life. So maybe we do see a Tunic reprint, especially if they want to start pushing Living Legend where Tunic maybe is a little more relevant. But hey, they kind of replaced Tunic in certain decks with like the what's called Old Knocker. Old Knocker got printed and replaced.
I saw that. That's a good
and
card.
replaced Tunic, right? And hey, like give us some other reprints. Like that's like a good replacement. But as far as reprints are concerned, Warmongers is a great pick. I think that any one of those Guardian cards are a good pick. Reprint Pummel. Pummel needs a reprint. We got the promo Pummels coming out, but
Pummel.
come on, reprint Pummel. Like, we don't need Pummels, but just give us some.
because
like,
Pummel
new
came out
prints.
in Welcome to Wraith.
That's it,
Yeah,
and it's
that's
never
it.
been reprinted since. Never. And I have such a hard time finding Pummels. Like, I just can't find them in my collection. So it's kind of like Sync Belows, where Sync Belows are actually worth money now. Oh,
Right.
reprint Sync Below.
Oh, yeah,
yeah.
They did
Reprint Sync Belows and Pummels in the same set, and we'll be happy. Come on, guys.
They reprinted Sync in the Ira Armory deck, which I guess kind of forces
I
everyone
mean, I
to
did
buy
just
Ira
buy
Armory decks, but
Yeah, that doesn't count.
I don't think that
I don't
counts
think
either.
that counts.
I don't think any reprint in an Armory
Only
deck
reprints in
counts.
an Armory deck count as if it's like Call to the Grave or something.
Right.
Like then it actually impacts the price of that card. Right. Anyway, I think we're diverting. We're getting into that fun like speculative thing here. But the question is like, how does that really how does this relate to market stuff? And it's seeing some of these older cards that are more expensive reprinted. Yes, your collection goes down, but I am fully confident that Codex of Frailty is going to be 50, 60, 70, 80 bucks again one day.
Yeah.
It's just going to go up by price, strictly because players keep on entering the game and leaving the game, and I think more players are entering than leaving, and playing the popular classes is just popular. That's just what it is. And
which I think speaks to actually how the problem has changed. You know,
Yes.
I am no longer super convinced that they need to reprint the same stuff over and over again. There are obvious examples that we've discussed that they probably should. They need to print more product.
Yeah.
You know, they need to print, they need to make more product available to more people and do more planning around what they expect to be their rate of escalation in terms of player base, because we had the hunted situation, we had that a little bit with high seas, maybe not to the same extent, but you know, maybe the Monarch model for how to you know, print a set didn't work at the time, and that's pretty scary. But we've got, I don't know, I would say easily like quintuple, sextuple, however much tuple the player base than we had at the time.
Yeah.
I think it's safe to say maybe if you were printing 180, 200,000 booster boxes back then, you could probably print 500,000 booster boxes. You know, I don't know the market economics of like the printing the boxes or whatever, so don't take my word for it. But obviously, I think the answer is print more.
Yes.
Print more of the set.
And I think that there's this other point that you've made in the past, and I think it's 100% worth discussing and looking into at this moment. If they're going to print more, I want to tell a story to you.
Tell me.
We're going to go all the way back. We're going to go back now to early 2000s. You're sitting in your bedroom, you're booting up your computer, you're clicking on the app, the application, the shortcut, whatever, and opens up. You hear the chorus, like deep booming chorus. And you see this dwarf on a mountainside, right? And the storm is brewing, and you see this big bear come up behind him. How hyped did that get you to play World of Warcraft, watching the night elf druid running through the forest, transforming into this panther, just made you just say, I have to play this game right now.
Dude, absolutely. I don't know if I've ever told you, I played World of Warcraft for 10 years. From November, 2nd, the day that it came out in 2004, until around November of 2014.
And he did not get off of his seat once that entire time.
You know, everything
that entire
there.
time. He was Eric Cartman in the flesh.
I still, to this day, boot up the original soundtrack to listen to it because it was so incredibly epic. And I think I understand what you're getting at.
What do you think I'm getting at?
You know, marketing.
There you go.
Marketing.
Marketing.
We need to talk about marketing.
We do. We should talk a little bit about marketing. LSS can do some really cool stuff with marketing here. And the thing is that they're going to reprint a bunch of product. They already have a dedicated player base. It's just burning through that product super fast. But what they really want to do, and what it seems like they're gunning for this next coming year, is they want to build that base even larger. And they need a better marketing program, don't they?
I really think they do. And I think, frankly, this goes along with the larger culture shift. I think everything we've discussed today so far has fallen in line to the culture shift we've been talking about, which needs to include a wider marketing campaign to get people excited, not just about the game, but the IP.
Yes.
We all started playing this game because these heroes look sick as hell. Levia's lore is sick as hell. There's been a deficit of lore. There's been a deficit of, you know, big cool mage guy understanding, like, who is this dude? Who's KO? Like, who's this guy over here with the shiny eyes? And that can all be fleshed out effectively with a marketing campaign that tells us stories about why we should care. And then those people can come and sit and play the game and said, not only is the marketing sick, the gameplay is so much better than I've experienced.
Better. And that's kind of why I bring up the story of World of Warcraft, because you sit down, you boot it up, and you get super amped and excited for this World of Warcraft game that you're playing, and then suddenly you really do feel like you're transported into another world. You are transforming literally into a panther to fight and kill enemies, and you're an orc smashing. Anyway, point is that like I do think that I do agree with you at a level where they do need to shift, and they've kind of slightly did this with some of these awesome trailers that have been coming out, but I think that if you just maybe amp it up just a little bit, that might actually just start to get butts in seats, right?
Right.
Butts in seats at your local armory,
100%.
but you need the product to back it up. So first they need to do that product thing, and then follow it up with this amazing marketing campaign. And, well, what hero do you think, if you had to pick one hero, right? Just one. Maybe let's just make it easy. Let's say three heroes, genuinely, do you think have the largest mass appeal? If you'll pick 3 heroes, I'll pick 3 heroes. I'll make mine separate from you. If they were to do some kind of cinematic like that, or some kind of, because like Final Fantasy 15 actually did something like this, where they did a bunch of like short animated stories behind each character. There's like 6 anime episodes you can watch on YouTube right now that kind of get you invested into the lore of the game, the background of the characters. Which 3 characters do you think they should do if they were to, I don't know, make some kind of like short film, animated, 3D, whatever, for marketing?
As much as it pains me to not say Levia, because I think she has some of the best like actual lore from a character perspective, the first 3 names that popped into my head are Prism, and because they focused on it, Prism, Viserai, and Bravo, or frankly Starvo, like what Starvo was. Yes. Those are the first 3 names that popped into my head. They've done so much around Prism. There are a ton of Prism enjoyers for reasons that we all understand. Viserai's thematic, his lore is really interesting. It's really cool. They have that juxtaposition. And Starvo has been a face. You know, the new Smash Palace has, you know, it's not Starvo, but you know, they have Bravo as
it's
the front man for that.
I mean, Starvo is Bravo.
I think they've developed, you know, a cast of characters that have, you know, frontman potential already.
Definitely.
And yeah, those are the 3 I would pick.
And the 3 I would pick is going to be Dromai, Dorinthia, and I'm kind of stuck between a ninja and an assassin. Screw it. I'm going to say, I think you can make a cooler video with the assassin. Do Arachne, the new Arachne, the one that transforms, the Chaos Talent one. What's his title? We have Arachne the Huntsman, Arachne Slip Through the Cracks, and Arachne... Marionette, yes. Yeah. Make Arachne Marionette alongside Dorinthia and Dromai, and the 3 heroes picked were Viserai, Bravo, and... Prism. And sure, you have a double representation of Prism and Dromai, but Illusionist is super mega popular. Yeah. But I think the reason why I say Dromai and Dorinthia is because I think that in this marketing cinematic, you could actually play out some of the coolest top 10 moments in Pro Tour, right? Like imagine seeing a battle between Axe's Dorinthia and Dromai, and then Dromai blocking with a Kyloria as she reaches into the sand and picks up a Sigil of Solace, gains 3 life, and heals up just enough to do the healing, the arcane blast into Dorinthia's face for the win. Like that would be such a cool cinematic idea to help bolster their marketing. And you could include, I was thinking Ira would be the ninja, because, you know, she's like the starter hero. Yeah. But I think as far as like flair goes, I think having a transforming assassin that changes identities and stuff would be much cooler. And being chased down by like, let's say like, I don't know how Viserai fits into the lore, or Bravo, or Prism. Let's just say Prism's hunting him down, right, in this video, or she's like throwing angels at him and he's like jumping across buildings and stuff and transfer. I don't know. I think that would be really amazing marketing. They could get, like, and just make it the intro video to Fab. And I think that you just tell people, hey, when someone says, hey, what's Flesh and Blood like? And you could say, this video right here is what it feels like to play the game. Just watch this video. Does it really feel like that? Bro, let me tell you.
It actually does.
It does.
It does. They are the perfect company, too, with the perfect name to do that kind of thing. They're Legend Story Studios. Dusk Till Dawn was a set, But the lore was good lore. Like the story that they told with Dusk Till Dawn and how they expanded on that whole
We're just gonna have to make an entire video about how much you hate Dusk Till Dawn.
I could go on
We're just
for
gonna have
a
to, guys.
really long time.
We're just gonna make it.
Really
In fact,
long time.
I'll just hand him the camera and say, bro, just upload a video, send it to me, and I'll just upload it.
I
Like,
could
just
go a
talk
long
about
time.
it forever. Right.
That said, the lore was really cool. Like the warriors of Wraith or whatever with Solana were like gathering their forces against the coming storm, and you know Monarch 3 is supposed to be like the culmination of all of that. But we have had not just a deficit, we have had like a barren wasteland of effective lore. What is supposed to be happening next? And they have that available to them. They've already written out so much that. Right, I think it would continue to be a great setting. And again, I don't think they need to go the regular marketing route. Let's get all these influencers. Let's get all these people to have an outsized voice in the community. No, tell 6 stories.
Fair, the local armory scene video was really cool.
Yes, it was.
And they got the actor, the great actor from Cobra Kai to feature in it, which I think was like a good point. And you have to highlight both elements. You have to highlight, hey, the community is really cool, but you also have to highlight that the game is really cool.
Right.
And if you have a really cool game with a really cool community and a really cool lore to back it up with some great marketing, the game is set to explode like a powder keg. That's the next investment, by the way. Like a powder keg, and there you go. Like
they have all of it, right? They have all of these elements working in their favor.
And I'm sure that's why they're.
It all depends on how they utilize them.
Yes.
I still continue to believe their storytelling. The storytelling they have access to, and that they've already proven. I think is their best asset if they choose to use it.
Yes.
I don't think they've chosen to use it as effectively as I believe that they ought to. But because the game does play like that. When I run those pretty movies in my head about when I'm playing my game and what's Levi doing, it does look like that, and it's really cool. But they have really cool stories that they could be telling, and I want
from every angle.
Yeah, from every angle, and I think that's going to bring in people more. That's going to bring in a bigger crowd than I think just the gameplay focused stuff.
100%.
Like that video you were talking about with Brody was there and Pablo Pintor and all this stuff. Yeah, if like those people or like you're familiar with like how Friday Night Magic or whatever how those things work, but if you're not.
Like,
I've been introducing some new people to the game from scratch. Never played card games before, done whatever, and they were drawn to the character. They've been drawn to the characters, and then the gameplay as they learn it, and those neurons start connecting, and it gets really exciting.
I heard this funny story about this guy. Met this guy, and he was telling me. He said, I just went to Japan, and I just walked into this samurai shop, this like factory, and said, give me a tour. And they did. And I'm just like, that's wild. You're just walking into random factories and saying, give me a tour. And just now I had this really strong urge to just fly to New Zealand, walk into Legend Story Studios, LSS, and say, give me a tour of what you guys do behind the scenes, and I'm going to film this whole thing, right? Yeah. And I think that's another element of the marketing. It's like, hey, come look at what we do behind the scenes.
Tell me those really legendary stories.
Like slide through, and then you could do some fun things. Like you could like have a blur in the background, like blurring out some like picture of Monarch 3 or something, like just to kind of get people amped and excited.
I want to see the Gottlieb cave.
Yes, give us that. I think that's also brilliant marketing because you not only do you get to know the players, you get to know the community, you get to know the game, but then you get to know the developers. And I think that's what we all love about this game. And we can kind of start like wrapping up here where those are like the big things that we truly love about Flesh and Blood.
All of it, everything,
all of
as you can tell, everything.
Exactly. Otherwise, we wouldn't be talking to you guys about this right now.
True.
Okay, please like, comment, and subscribe. As promised, we got so much coming to you. You have an awesome night, and until next time.